Nana Ruth never owned a piece of plastic wrap in her life. Her bananas lasted twice as long as yours. And when I was a kid on that Ohio farm, I thought that was just luck. I thought it was because she had some kind of magic touch in that kitchen. Turns out it was science. Dead simple science that nobody ever bothered to explain to us. Here's what's actually happening to your bananas right now, inside whatever bag or wrap you've got them in. And here's what Nana Ruth was doing right without ever knowing the technical word for it. When we're done, you'll never store bananas the wrong way again. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. Every week I bring you real food science from real kitchens. No fluff, no guessing, just what actually works and why it works. Now let's talk bananas. Walk into any grocery store and look at how they store bananas. They're not wrapped, they're not in bags. They're sitting out in big open bunches, usually in their own section away from everything else. That's not an accident. That's a documented supply chain decision based on plant physiology. The people running that produce department know something most home cooks don't. Bananas produce ethylene. That's a naturally occurring plant hormone. It's a gas, colorless, odorless, and every ripening banana is releasing it constantly. Ethylene is a chemical messenger. It tells the fruit's own cells that it's time to ripen. That's the whole mechanism. One little gas molecule changes everything about how a banana behaves. Here's where it gets interesting. When you wrap a banana bunch in plastic, whether that's a produce bag, cling wrap, a Ziploc, you're not protecting the bananas. You're trapping that ethylene gas right against the fruit. You've built a little ripening chamber. You've done accidentally exactly what commercial banana distributors do on purpose to ripen green fruit before it hits shelves. Ethylene binds to receptors on the surface of the banana's cells. Once it binds, it activates a cascade of enzymes. Three main ones you need to know: amylase, pectinase, and cellulase. Amylase breaks down starches into sugars. That's why a ripe banana tastes sweet and an unripe one tastes starchy and a little bitter. Pectinase breaks down pectin. That's the structural compound that keeps cell walls firm. That's why a ripe banana gets soft. Cellulase breaks down cellulose, another structural component. More softening, more texture change. All three of those enzymes are activated by ethylene. The more ethylene present, the faster those enzymes work. Wrap your bananas in plastic, and you've cranked up the ethylene concentration around the fruit. You've accelerated the activation of every single one of those ripening enzymes. You haven't preserved your bananas. You've put them on fast forward. Now, you might be wondering, I've heard people say to wrap the crown of the bunch in plastic. And some of those people are right about the crown part, but completely wrong about the plastic part. Let me explain why. The crown of a banana bunch is where the stems join together. It's a dense cluster of vascular tissue, and it's the primary site of ethylene release on the bunch. Not the only site, the whole fruit releases some ethylene through its skin, but the crown is where the heaviest concentration of gas escapes. That's documented fruit physiology. So the instinct to focus on the crown is correct. The material you're wrapping it in is where people go wrong. Plastic traps gas. If you're wrapping the crown in plastic, you might be slowing some dispersal at the very tip, but you're creating a pocket where any gas that does escape just sits there. You need something that blocks ethylene release rather than trapping it. More on that in a minute. Let me tell you why supermarkets keep bananas away from the rest of the produce. It's not just about space or visual merchandising. It's because bananas are what food scientists call a climacteric fruit with a high ethylene output. And many other common fruits are ethylene sensitive. They respond to ethylene in the air around them. Apples produce their own ethylene and respond to ethylene from other sources. Put bananas near apples and both fruits accelerate each other's ripening. Avocados are highly ethylene sensitive. A hard avocado sitting next to a bunch of bananas will ripen noticeably faster than one stored separately. Kiwis are the same way. Tomatoes, pears, peaches, all climacteric, all ethylene sensitive. Grocery stores know this. That's why the banana section is usually at one end of the produce department and not nestled in between the avocados and the kiwis. They're managing ethylene chemistry at scale. You can manage the same chemistry in your own kitchen. You just need to know the rules. Commercial banana ripening chambers are the most dramatic version of this science. Green bananas are harvested before they're ripe. They're shipped that way because ripe bananas bruise easily and don't survive long freight. Once they arrive at distribution centers, they go into temperature-controlled rooms. Ethylene gas is pumped in at controlled concentrations, typically between 100 and 150 parts per million. The temperature is kept around 58 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the optimal range for ripening enzymes to work. Within 3 to 5 days, those green bananas are perfectly yellow and ready for the store. The same gas, the same enzyme mechanism, just controlled precisely instead of accidentally. When you wrap your bananas in plastic, you're running a low-tech version of that ripening chamber. You're doing it on accident, and you're wondering why your bananas went brown in 2 days. Now let's talk about what actually slows ripening. This is where Nana Ruth comes in, and this is where the real practical advice lives. First, separate your bananas. Pull the bunch apart into individual bananas. Every connection point between bananas in a bunch is a spot where ethylene is concentrated. Bananas touching each other are gassing each other. Separating them gives each banana its own space and reduces the ethylene buildup at contact points. This one step alone can add 1 to 2 days to your banana's shelf life. That's documented. That's measurable. Second, address the crown properly. Once you've separated the bananas, wrap just the cut end of each individual banana's stem, the little nub where it broke off the bunch, with beeswax wrap or aluminum foil. Beeswax wrap is slightly porous but significantly reduces ethylene permeability compared to cut plant tissue. Aluminum foil blocks ethylene release effectively. You're not trapping gas around the fruit. You're slowing the release at the primary escape point. This is the right intervention. Small, targeted, effective. Nana Ruth used to tear off little squares of aluminum foil and wrap just the tips. She called it putting a cap on it. She didn't know about ethylene. She'd learned it from her mother, who'd probably learned it from watching what worked. 3 generations of empirical observation before we had the science to explain why it worked. Third, storage temperature and the refrigerator question. Cold slows enzyme activity. That's basic biochemistry. Enzymes have optimal temperature ranges, and cooling them down reduces their efficiency. For the ripening enzymes we talked about, amylase, pectinase, cellulase, the optimal range is somewhere between 55 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Below 55, enzyme activity drops dramatically. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is the thing that confuses people most about refrigerating bananas. The skin of the banana blackens in the refrigerator. It looks terrible. People see that and assume the banana has gone bad. But the interior, the flesh, can remain perfectly good. You're watching 2 different processes happening simultaneously. The blackening of the banana skin in cold temperatures is caused by polyphenol oxidase, an enzyme that's active in the skin cells and that reacts with oxygen when cell walls are damaged by cold. The cold temperatures cause damage to the banana's cell membranes. This is called chilling injury, and it releases those polyphenol compounds, which then oxidize and turn dark brown or black. That's happening in the skin cells specifically. Inside the banana, the starch-to-sugar conversion that ethylene was driving has slowed or stopped because the ripening enzymes are too cold to work efficiently. The flesh stays at whatever stage it was at when you put it in the refrigerator. If you refrigerate a banana when it's just right, yellow, a few brown flecks, sweet but still firm, the flesh will hold at that quality for up to 2 more weeks even as the skin turns completely black. So, don't refrigerate unripe bananas. The chilling injury kicks in before they ever get a chance to ripen properly. But do refrigerate bananas that have hit peak ripeness and that you want to hold for another week or so. The black skin is cosmetic. Peel it and the fruit inside is fine. Fourth, the cool pantry and the ventilation question. A lot of modern kitchens run warm. The area near the oven, near the refrigerator motor vents, on top of the refrigerator, all of those spots are warmer than they look. Warm temperatures accelerate enzyme activity. A banana on top of the refrigerator in a 75-degree kitchen is ripening significantly faster than a banana in a 60-degree pantry. Nana Ruth had a root cellar and a cool back porch and a pantry that stayed around 58 degrees in summer. She kept bananas in the pantry, never on the counter near the stove. That wasn't superstition. It was a practical understanding of what heat does to food. Find the coolest spot in your kitchen that's still above 55 degrees Fahrenheit. That's your banana storage spot. Ventilation matters too. A cool, well-ventilated space allows ethylene to dissipate naturally. Ethylene is lighter than air and disperses easily in open conditions. A banana hanging from a banana hook in a cool, ventilated pantry is in a much better environment than a banana sitting in a bowl on a warm counter. The hook lets air circulate around all surfaces. The banana itself is separated from contact with other produce. Ethylene disperses instead of accumulating. Simple physics working in your favor. Now let's talk about the vinegar spray method. You've probably seen this one circulating online. Some people swear by it, some people think it sounds crazy. Here's the actual science. White vinegar is a dilute solution of acetic acid, typically about 5% acidity in standard household vinegar. Acetic acid is an organic acid with documented antimicrobial properties. Food safety researchers have studied organic acid washes on fruit surfaces as alternatives to chemical sanitizers. The results show that diluted vinegar can reduce surface mold and bacteria on fruit. Why does that matter for bananas? Because surface mold is one of the mechanisms that accelerates visible decay. Mold on the surface of a banana doesn't just look bad. It produces enzymes of its own that break down the fruit tissue. It also creates small breach points in the skin where oxygen can penetrate more easily and where moisture exchange changes. The application is simple. 1 part white vinegar to 3 parts water in a spray bottle. Mist the outside of your bananas lightly. Let them air dry completely before storing. You're not pickling the bananas. You're applying a light antimicrobial wash to the surface. The acetic acid concentration is low enough that it won't penetrate the skin or affect the flavor of the fruit. This works best as a complement to the other methods: separation, crown wrapping, cool storage, not as a standalone fix. On its own, the vinegar spray might give you an extra day of surface quality. Combined with the other approaches, you're giving every mechanism of decay a different thing to fight. Let me put all of this into Nana Ruth's method, step by step, the way it actually looks in a real kitchen. You come home from the store with a bunch of bananas. You don't put them in a bag. You don't wrap them in anything. The first thing you do is separate the bunch. Pull each banana away from the crown. You'll hear them snap off one at a time. Now you have individual bananas in a stripped-down cluster of stems. You discard the stem cluster or compost it. You tear off small squares of aluminum foil, about 2 inches by 2 inches. You fold each one snugly around the cut stem end of each individual banana. Just the tip, just the crown area where the stem broke. You're not wrapping the whole banana. You're capping the main ethylene release point. You take your spray bottle with diluted vinegar, and you give each banana a light mist on the outside. Nothing heavy, just a fine coat. You let them sit on a clean towel for 10 minutes to dry completely. Then you find your coolest storage spot: pantry, bottom of a cabinet away from appliances, a counter away from the stove. If you have a banana hook, you use it. If not, you lay them on a clean surface with a little space between each one so air circulates. That's it. That's the whole method. No gadgets, no special products, no plastic. Nana Ruth would have recognized every single step even if she couldn't have told you the words ethylene or pectinase. Now let me talk about the economic reality of banana storage, because this is where it stops being just interesting and starts being actually important. The USDA has documented that Americans waste between 30 and 40% of the food supply. That's a range that's been cited in research from the Natural Resources Defense Council and confirmed by multiple USDA Economic Research Service publications. Fruits and vegetables make up a disproportionate share of that waste, because they're perishable, and because most people don't understand the biology of how they decay. Bananas are one of the most purchased fruits in America. They're cheap individually, usually somewhere between 19 and 29 cents per pound at most grocery stores. But when you're throwing away 1 or 2 bananas every week because they went brown before you could eat them, that adds up over a year. More importantly, it's a food system problem. Every banana that gets composted or thrown in the trash represents agricultural land, water, labor, transportation fuel, and refrigeration energy that went to produce food that nobody ate. Understanding the science isn't just about saving money on your grocery bill, it's about not wasting resources that went into producing that food. A banana that lasts 5 days instead of 2 represents 3 fewer days of ripening that someone else's farm had to compensate for. Small scale in your kitchen, aggregated across millions of kitchens, adds up to something real. Nana Ruth was raised in a household where food waste was not something you did. Not because of environmental consciousness as we'd understand it today, that language didn't exist, but because wasting food was wasteful. It was a practical moral position. You grew it or you bought it. You used it. Period. That's still a sensible position. The science just gives us better tools to act on it. Let me also address the banana bread question, because somebody always brings this up in the comments and I'd rather head it off now. Yes, overripe bananas, very brown, very soft, are actually better for banana bread than fresh yellow bananas. The enzyme activity that we've been talking about stopping has done something useful. It's converted a lot of the starch to sugar, and it's broken down the pectin so the banana mashes smoothly and incorporates into batter easily. The Maillard reaction during baking creates new flavor compounds from those sugars. Overripe bananas make sweeter, more flavorful banana bread than fresh ones. So if you notice a banana has gotten ahead of you, if it's already very soft and very brown and you're not going to eat it as is, peel it, put it in a Ziploc bag, and freeze it. Frozen overripe bananas are perfect for banana bread and smoothies. The freezing ruptures the cell walls, which makes them even softer when thawed, and the flavor is fully developed and sweet. This is the productive use of a banana that went bad. It didn't go bad, it went to its next stage. You can keep frozen overripe bananas for 3 months in the freezer with no meaningful quality loss. That's an extension from, this went bad in 2 days because I wrapped it in plastic, to, I'll make banana bread with this in late June. That's the full spectrum of banana management, from purchase to freezer. Now let me circle back to the central thing I want you to take away from all of this. Every piece of conventional advice about wrapping bananas in plastic was wrong. Not slightly off, Wrong in a way that's directly contradicted by the documented plant biology of how bananas ripen. The ethylene mechanism is not a new discovery. It's been understood in commercial food science for decades. Controlled ethylene ripening of bananas has been an industry standard practice since the mid-20th century. But that knowledge never made it to the average kitchen because nobody bothered to translate it. That's the pattern I see over and over in home food storage. The commercial food industry understands the science because it costs them money when they get it wrong. Millions of dollars of produce spoils if you mismanage ethylene in a warehouse. So they figured it out. They applied plant biology and biochemistry to the problem. They built systems around it. In your kitchen, a few brown bananas isn't a financial catastrophe. So nobody ever gave you the science. You got folk wisdom, some of which was right by accident, like Nana Ruth's aluminum foil, and some of which was wrong, like wrapping the whole bunch in plastic. Now you have the science. You know why ethylene matters. You know where it releases most heavily and how to slow that release. You know how temperature affects enzyme activity and why a cool pantry beats a warm counter. You know why the refrigerator is actually a good tool used at the right moment in the banana's ripeness curve. You know why vinegar spray works and what it's actually doing. You know why plastic wrap is the worst thing you can do. You have everything you need. If this kind of real food science is useful to you, if you want to stop operating on guesswork in your kitchen and start understanding what's actually happening to your food, then subscribe right now. I put out videos like this every single week. Real documented science applied to real cooking situations, explained in plain language. No fluff, no clickbait, just what works and why it works. Nana Ruth would have watched every video. She was the kind of person who wanted to know why things worked, not just that they worked. If you're that kind of person too, you're in the right place. Separate those bananas, cap the crowns, find a cool spot. Skip the plastic entirely. Your bananas will last longer, taste better, and cost you less money in food waste over the course of a year. And now you can explain exactly why to anyone who asks. That's the whole story. Go handle your fruit.